Hello, it's Kristen here, and I have a somatic exercise for you today. This exercise is first and foremost about helping us to become more aware of our body's more subtle sensations, or we could say reactions, responses to whatever is happening around us or whatever it is we're doing. It's not something that we are necessarily aware of in everyday life, and therefore we're having this exercise because the more we can be aware of these things, the more we understand ourselves, we know ourselves, we are more connected to our instincts. And, that's a healthy and helpful thing in terms of, being clearer on our sort of patterns of behavior, noticing when we're doing things that we actually may not want to do. And also, it helps our nervous system to process what's happening, to have the time to allow these sensations to come up and then to also shift them, change them, settle them, whatever they need to do. So that's what this exercise is about. And at the end of it, it might also actually, because we're doing it in the process of the exercise, it might actually also help us release some tension or something that we're holding as well. Or it might just give you some insights about yourself that you weren't that clear on before. So very exciting, very, explorative. I would just say that if you feel, if it makes you nervous, the idea of going deeply into your body and tracking sensations, then, if it doesn't feel safe at the moment for you, which for some of us it doesn't, then, you could always watch the video first and then decide whether you're going to do it later after you kind of know what the exercise is, or it may just not be for you today. Feel free to get in touch with me about it if you're not sure, or if you're interested, but you're not quite daring it on your own. It's really fine. It's not always the right time or right place to do these things. So listen to your body, listen to your instinct about what feels safe for you. But if you're up for it, if you feel curious and you want to have a go, let's do this together. So what you will need is, I've been holding this lovely little seahorse. You'll need something that you can hold in your hand, because this is all about holding something in your hand. So what would be helpful is something that you're not so emotionally attached to. So nothing too precious, nothing too, nothing you're hating, something kind of neutral, and something that you can hold in one hand that also isn't too fragile. So you can squeeze it, you can hold it very lightly, and it might fall out of your hand, and it's not a big deal. So this little seahorse, it's filled with sand. So it's a very nice sort of tactile toy. So, it could be something like that, so like a squeezy ball, something like that, or a small cushion or something. So, ideally something that, it would be great if it's something that molds a little bit. It's kind of has a texture that adjusts to your hand. But if it's a mug, that will also, do for the purpose of the exercise. So I would recommend that whatever it is you're holding it in your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, it's going to be your right hand. If you're left-handed, it's going to be your left hand. And just hold it first of all, and just don't think too much about it. Just hold it in your hand, and then just notice how you're holding it. So what's your sort of default hold of this object? Of course, it depends a little bit on how heavy it is or how fragile it is, and these things vary. But if you were just going to sort of default hold this thing, what do you notice about the grip you've got on it? Is it very loose? Is it like you're barely holding it and it could easily fall out of your hand and your hand feels sort of weak in its grip? Or is it more on the end of having a sort of death grip on it? It's like, I've got it, So just notice that for a moment. What is your default grip of this thing, this object at this moment in time? And take your time to sense into that, because, you may not have much point of reference right now, but without changing it, what would you say? Does this feel more like a tense kind of grip, or is it a loose kind of grip? And just make sure you can support your arm a little bit with this as well. You may, if it's a strong grip, you may feel actually some tension going up your arm, which is also very interesting to notice. How often in everyday life do we pick up things or hold things, you know? How much tension are we putting into our arm or even into our shoulder, you know, just because we're holding up a cup. So there's that as well, in terms of already getting a sense of behavioral patterns or efficiency of how we use our body. Something to consider. So yeah, stay with it a little longer if you can, and just notice this grip without changing it. That's your default grip at this moment in time of this object. And it tells you a little bit about yourself in general, but also about yourself, of course, right now, right? And how does it feel in your body to hold it like this? So, you know, again, this will be probably a tricky question because, again, there's no point of reference yet. There's no comparison yet. It's probably going to feel normal, you know, whatever that is. So, you know, just for a moment, lightly ask yourself that question, like, what is normal for me? What does this feel like? How would you describe it to somebody else? It might sound very abstract, or you might explain it in an image. Oh, it's a bit like heavy sand in my body or something, you know, that would be fine. Whatever images or words come to you to describe this abstract sense inside you as you're holding this object. And then I invite you to very gradually hold it a little bit stronger. So your fingers, your hand, your grip is tightening around this object very lightly and very slowly, right? So don't do it too quickly, because you want to have time for your body to take in this information of change and to notice, and you want to notice what happens, what changes as you squeeze it more, what comes up for you. So very gradually strengthening that grip, tightening that grip. And I wonder if you're noticing something physiologically in your body, like is there something subtly changing about your breath? Are your muscles in your arm or shoulder or somewhere else contracting as well as in your hand? And also, well, how is this sort of on a affect sort of level? You know, do you feel your strength when you're holding it like that? You know, is it like, oh yeah, I can really hold this firmly in my hand? Or is it, you know, a bit like it gives me a sense of anxiety that, you know, I'm sort of holding on to it because I'm afraid I'm going to lose it, or, you know, there could be some meaning there too. So expanding that sensory level of our awareness as you're holding this more tightly, as you're squeezing it, having a strong grip on it, a stronger grip than is necessary, and staying with it. What comes up for you? So any sort of insight there? It's like, oh, actually, it feels familiar. I do that a lot. Holding on to things harder than I need to. Or, you know, something along those lines. It's a habit, it's a behavior that I'm recognizing. Or it feels very alien to you. No, I never do that. I never hold things that strongly. And I'm meaning that metaphorically as well. So let's be with it a moment longer, if that's okay, and notice what comes up. And maybe, you know, if there is something that comes up that's come up and it's, you know, settled, sort of gone again, or settled, or changed. And then slowly allow your hand to soften, that grip to soften. And again, go really slowly back to where you were with your grip. And then also allow your grip to lighten a little bit. You could move your hand a little bit if your sort of muscles have gone a bit stiff of holding. And, you know, exploring maybe the shape and the weight of this object that you're holding, allowing a bit of movement. You can also look at it as you're exploring it with your fingers and just exploring what it's like to hold it. And what's it like to explore? You know, as you're kind of gathering more information, you're doing something that is fluid, you know, and it's changeable, it's not fixed. And what's that like for you? What do you notice in your body from, you know, having made such a change from holding something really tightly to playfully, exploratively moving it around in your hand? And if it's, you know, too tricky to do that with one hand, you could bring your other hand into it as well. Kind of help yourself out. What happens as you do that you notice in terms of, again, the soft tissue, your posture, your inner sense of awareness, of subtle sensations? Is there a sense of relief or interest or lightheartedness, something else? Is it irritating to not just kind of hold it and be sure? Does that feel more you? Is that like, oh, actually, I do that a lot with things, with situations? And again, give it a little bit of time to do what it's doing. And then gradually settle back into just holding it in a secure kind of way, but really lightly, so that you're almost going to let it go. It's like a raw egg or something. It's so fragile, or, you know, you're barely holding it. Hold it so it nearly slips out of your hand, but it just about doesn't. And then again, wait and see how your body responds. What happens here in response to this very loose grip that's almost on the edge of just letting it go? Do you feel like a surge of energy of like, oh, watch it, watch it? Is that familiar? Is it unbearable? Or is there something really comfortable about not having to hold it really and not minding that it might just go? And how does that again represent in your body? Is there something in your posture, in your breath, in your energy? You feel like you have to look at it to have some extra information about whether this is going to slip out of your hand or not? What does that mean to you? And then just take another moment to hold it however you want to hold it. So coming back to how you held it at the beginning, perhaps, or maybe you found that one of the other ways of holding it or exploring it felt really good to you in some way. So just come back to that one more time, whatever that was. I'm going to pick mine and really allow yourself to feel what feels good about this. What made you choose this way of holding it? And I don't mean that necessarily on a meaning level. It's a good opportunity to go back into your body and go, oh, what is it in my body that responds so well to doing this kind of hold? How would I describe that? What feels good, or how do I know that this feels good to do? It could be on a meaning level. Maybe you just go like, I think this is the best way to deal with this. I would like to be this person that holds it like that. So sure, go ahead and explore then what it's like to be that person that holds this object like that. What does that mean to that kind of person's life, or for that kind of person's life that you want to be? And then let that object go and just allow your hand to rest for a moment, and just take a moment to just notice what you notice, and to really give yourself time to process and settle this information that's happened, or that release of awareness information, this exploration, how that is landing for you, what you learned, or how you're feeling now. And what do you need now? What would be good to do next? So that's the exercise for today. Feel really free to give me some feedback on how you found it, how this worked for you, or what you would like to share about what you discovered. I would be very curious to hear. And I hopefully see you around sometime again. Bye for now.